Hey guys, my name is Chris. I'm going to hopefully show you how to replace the stock remote in your LaCroix Prototypo. This is the GSS 50, but it should be the same for both of them, with the Hoyt St puck. But this should apply for anything where you need to swap in a remote and recalibrate best settings. You need to swap in the receiver for a new remote, because not everybody's remote is compatible. These are using two different proprietary things. We can talk about that too. Before I get started, I want to show you the only difference, hopefully, between my board and yours. I took this out. This is the original Bluetooth transmitter that came with the board, and it's been swapped for the Meter Pro, which I stuck in right over here. See, it's wired with like the 7 wires or whatever. So that's probably the only difference. Oh, I added something over here, but we're not going to talk about that stuff over there. Anyway, this is the original receiver in its original position. I threw it back in there to show you guys what to look for. Okay, it's this little black box. It's connected by a 3-wire connector to the primary FOC box, okay, the master FOC box, which is on the left side if we're looking at it from up here. So, and there's another 3-wire connection that goes over to the 2-wire connection. That's the communication for the other FOC box. So that's how they're connected, and that's how the receiver talks to both of your motors to tell your board to go forward. So anyway, the first thing to do is to deal with the mess of hot glue that came in originally on here. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. The plastic case on this receiver is not super sturdy. It did all kinds of flexing and bending. It almost cracked when I was removing hot glue and trying to take it out of there originally. But I did get it out, and it does still work. You just got to kind of be patient and really finesse it. Get some pliers involved. Carefully get a little baby screwdriver involved to kind of pry it away from the enclosure if you have to. And then once that's out, you can more easily access and remove the 3-pin connector, because that was also tied in pretty well with some hot glue, which is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't want to lose our connection from things rattling around. But you can leave this in if you want, just because of the hot glue situation and the difficulty I had getting the 3-pin connector off. I eventually took it out and decided to keep it as a backup if my other hardware ever fails. So, the old one out, and you've got your 3-pin dongle ready to connect to somewhere else. The receiver that came with has a 3-pin receiver. So it came with this big fat piece. It's sort of an adapter, like a female-to-female adapter. And so you can plug the original FOC box connector in to the receiving end of that female-to-female that comes with the Hoyt St puck receiver, if that's what you're using. You can decide to place this receiver pretty much wherever you want. I recommend, from what I've read and from what people have told me, putting it as far away as possible from the electronics, the rest of the electronics in the board, because if anything's going to generate, EMF and radiative interference, then that's going to come from the back of the board. But anyway, I ran some wires all the way down the board so that it could be as far away as possible from the electronics. You can certainly choose to put it back in where the old one was. That's a fine spot too. It's totally up to you. But set up, the way to make things stay in place, the way everything stays in place inside of here pretty much, is hot glue. So I use just the cheap white hobby hot glue. It's probably not as high heat or durable as what came on some of the components in here, but it's been working for me so far. So everywhere you've got a connection, a 3-pin connector connecting to another one. Look at that here. A bunch of hot glue on these just to keep them from getting separated under any conditions. And then I'll probably hot glue that back down to the enclosure too, so it's not rattling around and moving around. And I've got some tethers here that I hot glued and just keeping things in place. So find a clear path that's not going to get pinched. You don't want to run wire on top of any of these batteries. There's a nice open channel in the middle if you want to run some thin wires. So I did that. And then kind of had to cobble together a 3-pin connection with these 3 wires that are from another project. But as you can see, that's the path from here down to the front. Okay, the next step is going to be to set up the new hardware to configure your master Foxbox for the throttle settings on your new controller. And really what it amounts to is setting a 0 point and telling the software how high and how low the brake and the throttle and brake ranges are for your potentiometer inside your remote. There's a couple of different kinds of control in the VESC software that the Foxboxes use. There's what's called PPM control. That's what the Nano and the Hoyt St use, is PPM control in my setup. I think there's 1 or 2 other ways of sending control signals besides PPM, but we're not going to talk about those here. This is a PPM setup. Okay, so that's good to go. My connection is solid. Now this part's a little tricky. We need to connect by USB your Foxbox to your personal desktop computer or laptop computer. The software is available on PC, it's available on Mac. I'll put links in the video footer or the comments description for that stuff. You can find it there. You want to be using the latest version of the software. Generally, it's going to make your life easier and do a better job, and you'll be less likely to hurt yourself. So if you look down here, there's a little connection on the side of this. We access it from below with the 4-pin connector with the tapered side down. Okay, which is, to me, that's right side up. So the flat side up, the bigger side up. And if you're forcing it, you don't have it yet, it should just pop right in there real easy once you get it lined up. And then let's grab the computer. The other end USB. Start with screen grab. Okay. So here in the VESC tool, I actually am running the Acmaniac VESC tool, but they're very similar. They offer the same settings tools, and you can update the settings in the same way. It's up to you guys if you want to update the firmware or not. Someone talked me into it because Acmaniac is sort of the state of the art now. Everybody was like, oh yeah, just flip to it, use it. It seems a little daunting, and it's not without its risks to do a firmware upgrade. The main thing is just to make sure that you back up settings ahead of time to XML and update both Foxboxes the same. Accessing the USB port on the second Foxbox is a bit more of a pain in the ass, so that puts another roadblock in your way. If you do want to upgrade software, you're going to have to move this power connector over here because it's blocking the access to the USB port on mine, at least. Maybe the configuration is slightly different on different builds, but at least in my case, I had to remove this connector. You see I re-glued it. I had to remove that to be able to access the USB on the secondary slave Foxbox. But once you've got the VEST tool open and your USB connection, or your USB wired in, you should be able to connect by clicking connect on the VEST tool software. Wah, wah. Oh, we're not powered on. Okay, power on. Oh, quick pause. Before we do any kind of settings with any kind of controller, we need to remove the belts from the motors. Okay? These motors want to spin, that's fine. They'll grind against my enclosure a little bit or whatever, but you're going to have a really bad day if you leave the belts on and you turn on a new remote with the improper settings and controls enabled. Okay. So now that we are connected, read app configuration. And under app settings ppm, we can see this stuff. Okay, but before we touch anything, we're going to turn control off. Remember, we were originally with current no reverse with brake. That's what the board ships with. That's basically, you know, forward is throttle, reverse is brake. Once you get to 0, you don't go backwards. There's no reverse. Okay, and with control type set to off, we can say write app configuration. So now we should be able to turn on the remote. Boom. And okay. So what you need to do is turn on stream real-time app data here. And now you can see when I push with my thumb on the controller, we can see what the app is reading. Okay? Now you need to use this tool here to set your min and your max, basically. You go pull it all the way back, push it all the way up, and it shows you where your center is, where your max is, where your min is. And then you can hit apply and it'll throw those values up here. Right? Remember, we turned off control, so everything is happening as it usually does, except the motors are not spinning according to the control signal from the remote. So once you've done that, you'll click apply app settings again once you have the proper values in here. Then we can come back to the general tab, switch control type, current no reverse with brake. And then we write the app settings. Okay. And now hit the button. Ta-da! All set. When you're done with the app here, you can just hit disconnect. Now you're good to go. Turn off the board, unplug your USB, turn off your remote, and put it back together and do a road test. Thanks for watching, guys.